Alright, now let's discuss the performance, security, and retention money in construction contracts. These components are two important components in construction, as they are like a specific job, and it's apart from it's specifically related to the quantity surveyor job. So it's kinda not really very commonly known or understood among all engineers or construction workers. The presentation explores two crucial financial mechanisms in construction contracts: performance, security, and retention money. These two are essential for ensuring project completion and quality, while balancing the interests of both the employer and the contractor. Let's start with performance security. What is a performance security? Definition: it's a financial guarantee provided by the contractor to the employer to ensure proper performance of the work and fulfillment of contractual obligations. It's related to clause 4.2 in FIDIC, of course. The amount, it's typically 10% of the contract price provided as a bank guarantee or a bond. The thing is here, it's that the performance security cannot be a check. It's not really something common unless stated otherwise. Usually it's a bank guarantee in a state of guarantee, issued from a bank, because this is a very long process that the bank has to do very strong restrictions on the employer or the contractor that's issuing this guarantee. So it's related to assets and very strong ownerships of things that can be a strong guarantee for the bank. So mostly it's like a bank guarantee or a bond, so it's not really preferred as a check. When required, it's usually submitted within 28 days of receiving the letter of acceptance, of course, of the project. Validity: this performance bond stays valid until the contractor completes the work and remedies defects. Meaning to say, it's until not just the end of the project, it's even after DLP. When retained, the performance security is retained to the contractor after the engineer issued the performance certificate following the completion of the defects liability period, DLP. So this performance bond still on the hold with the owner or the client until after the DLP period, which is not exactly when the project ends. It's after 1 year or 2 years or 3 years as stated in the DLP period. Performance certificate. Why is performance certificate important here? Because the performance certificate is a certificate that contractor can take after the DLP. After the performance certificate, you can actually stop your guarantee or your performance guarantee. This is how you can retain your performance guarantee, by the performance certificate. What is a performance certificate? It's a document issued by the engineer certifying that the contractor has successfully completed all contractual obligations, including the execution and completion of the works and the remedying of any defects, marking the end of the defects liability period, as stated in clause 11.9, which is of course a clause from FIDIC. When we say a clause here, it's a FIDIC. It's like an item in the FIDIC, and they call it by classes. So this performance certificate is issued after the DLP, meaning to say you can actually finish the projects and not get a performance certificate, because you have to finish your DLP period first, then you can get your performance certificate. This performance certificate can be after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, according to the DLP again. After you gain this performance certificate, you attach it with the documents requirement to stop your performance guarantee. Letter of acceptance. It's a formal written communication issued by the employer to the contractor signifying the acceptance of the contractor's tenders. It marks the formation of a binding contract between the parties based on the terms outlined in the accepted tender and any modification agreed upon. The letter of acceptance typically includes details such as contract price and may specify conditions to be fulfilled before signing the formal agreement. Letter of acceptance is like when the tender is like issued and approved to only a specific contractor after the tender process. This is where you actually choose your contractor. Then you can just inform him verbally or by the phone, congratulations, you have the project. There is a formal process of paper to do this. So you hand your contractor the letter of acceptance. Again, this is important here because this is official communication between the employer and the contractor. The official communication means the contractor at this point will start preparing for his performance guarantee. Retention money. The retention money is a way different from the performance guarantee. Retention money is actually not just a one-time payment. It's not a guarantee. It's not a check. It's a deduction. It's actually a deduction doing one by one at each interim payment certificate. What it is? It's a percentage. It's typically 5 to 10% withheld from each interim payment certificate as financial security for the employer under subclause 14.3 from FIDIC. The money is withheld progressively until the maximum retention limit, usually 5 to 10% of the total contract price, is reached. Meaning to say, retention money is a deduction. It's 5 to 10%. It's actually deducted from each interim payment certificate according to each payment. So it's not a one-time thing. One more thing, there is a way to not have a retention money, to not have a deduction from each interim payment certificate. This only one way is through doing a specific thing, which is providing a retention money guarantee. It's a certificate that you can issue from your bank as a guarantee certificate for the retention. If you provide this with the project, then you will avoid actually having a deduction. This way, there is no deduction for the project. No retention money deducted. But you will have the performance guarantee. This is different. Release stages. Retention money is different in releasing than performance certificate guarantee. The release stage for the retention is in two halves actually. The first half is after the issuance of the taking offer certificate or TOC for the works or section under subclause 14.9 from FIDIC. Meaning to say, the project ends in two halves and the retention money goes back to you in two halves. The first half is the after TOC, and this is where you get the first half of the retention money. The second half of the retention money release is after the end of the defects liability period, DLP, regardless of whether the defects liability certificate DLC has been issued. Meaning to say, even if you don't receive your DLC certificate, but the time meant for the DLP has finished, you can get the other half of your retention money. Retention money, different DLP for parts or sections. When the works are divided into parts or section, each with a distinct defects liability period, the release of retention money is managed in a specific manner. Half of retention money for a section or part upon the issuing of the taking offer certificate for a specific section or part, 40% of the retention money corresponding to that section is released. This amount is calculated as 2/5 of the portion obtained by dividing the estimated contract value of the section by the estimated final contract price multiplied by the total retention money. There is an example calculation for this. For example, if you have a contract price for $1 million, the retention money is 10% of the contract price, which is $100,000. Section A value will be $300,000. Proportion paid is 40% of the $300,000 divided by the million, then multiplied by the 100,000, so it's $12,000. The $12,000 this way represents the first half of the retention money for a section. Retention money second half release. Second half of retention money for all sections. The second half of retention money for any section or part is withheld until the expiry of the latest defects liability period application to the entire work. It's aiming to ensure the employer retains sufficient security until all parts or section are confirmed to be free of defects. For example, Section A DLP of 12 months and there's Section B DLP of 18 months. The second half of the retention money for both Section A and B will only be retained after the longest time, which is 18 months, upon confirmation that all defects in Section B have been fully addressed. Related definitions for actually the retention money. Snag list. A snag list here is a punch list prepared during the final inspection before issuing the taking over certificate. It identifies and records mining outstanding works or defecting that require correction, either prior to the issuance of the TOC during the defects liability period. It's actually prepared by the consultancy parties and the clients who can visit the project during the taking over or the handing over of the project, and before issuing the TOC they prepare this snag list, they hand it over to the contractor. Then they can state that some of these snag lists should be finished before the TOC and some can be finished during the DLP. It can be stated with the handing over documents which is which. Sections. Sections is like dividing the work of the projects into sections. They call it by sections. So subdivisions of the works identified for phased completion or handovers, as specified in the appendix to tender. They allowed for staggered taking over certificate TOCs, enabling the employer to take over and use portions of the work as they are completed while construction continued on the remaining section. Parts. Distinct components of the components of overall project that are not initially specified in the contract but arise from the employer's need during execution. If the employer requires using a specific part of the works before the completion of the entire work, the engineer may issue a taking over certificate for that specific part. So they can have parts even for TOC. TOC can be divided for one part, can be provided for a specific part, and so on. These are the terms that we just used to define what we need in the retention and the performance certificate guarantee. The contract award, construction phase, completion of works, taking over certificate, TOC, defects liability period, the DLP, end of DLP and DLC insurance. The DLC is the defects liability certificate, final statement, and performance certificate. And this is all you need to understand to actually understand the process of the performance certificate, performance guarantee, retention money, retention guarantee, and the DLP and the DLC. Hope you had a good lesson, and bye bye.